Hello, story seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and welcome to the Tiny Bookcase. Right now, you're listening to our favourite part of the week.
Stories, discussion, and a high likelihood of gratuitous obscenities, all to sate the hunger of the story sorcerer, Eusteris.
Regular listeners will know how it works, but for the newcomers, Ben and I have both written a story to the same prompt.
We're about to share those stories with each other and you for the first time, then we'll workshop them on mic. The prompt for this episode is interest. Nico, intrigue me.
Interest.
Beautiful, isn't it?
The little voice startled Malcolm, who glanced about left and right. For a moment, he suspected a spectre of some sort, a gnome tucked into his hoodie pocket, or perhaps some darker, eldritch being. But then, would those things be quite so nasal? Who could say? He cast his vision down a few inches and found that stood next to him, disconcertingly close, was a man. The first thing about him that Malcolm noticed was the glistening baldness. To call it a spot would be to do it a disservice. Instead, it was a lake of baldness, circled by a well-thinned and oily shoreline. An attempt had been made to scrape some strands of hair across the thing. It made it look like a dropped boiled egg. Hello, Malcolm offered. He knew that not wearing his headphones today to drink in the majesty of nature was a shit idea. He hadn't liked it on the train down to the coast at all. Listening to people cough and wheeze and long since blown speakers squeak the names of preceding ridiculous countryside towns. He hadn't liked the way his phone had declared, "Signal lost," in its panicked, artificial voice as it struggled to guide him from the station to the sea. And most of all, he didn't like that it meant he had heard this strange little man.
Isn't it?
Prompted the little fellow. He hadn't turned his face up towards Malcolm, and instead was staring fixedly into the churning brown of a British coastline. Isn't it? Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I suppose so. Sort of calming, really. Malcolm didn't believe it. It had been the idea. Get away to the coast, look at the ocean, do some deep breaths, and accept the futility of existence, that sort of thing. In fact, it was drab. Truly, quite boring.
Yes, really quite astonishing, this place.
The little man was, when Malcolm looked down again, rummaging through a backpack. Inexplicably, a long rat's tail of hair ran from the bottom of his scalp. Malcolm wondered how on earth he'd grown it, or kept it, under the dreadful circumstances surrounding the rest of his lid. He watched with some interest as the man rummaged. His forearms shifted oddly as he worked them beneath an unopened flap. After some time, when Malcolm thought perhaps he might look away, the man produced a large flask. He turned his face upwards to look at Malcolm. It was a normal-looking face, save for a large dark mole on the end of its nose. The mole had a single long hair growing out of it. It drooped. Malcolm wanted to look anywhere but at it, lest it become awkward. So he smiled and turned back to the sloshing brown sea. It was still dull.
Do you drink hot chocolate, young man?
It was an interesting question because it answered the one already in Malcolm's mind of what's in that bloody flask. It was further to that a very uninteresting question because bloody everyone likes hot chocolate. It came back into being interesting because this man was a stranger. There were two options here. Either he was simply asking if Malcolm was a fan of imbibing hot chocolate out of some strange fascination, or he was offering, in a roundabout way, some hot chocolate to Malcolm. But he was a stranger. But he was also an older man, and they were always offering sweet treats to people, weren't they? Malcolm had seen those Werther's Originals adverts. Just don't sit on his knee, no matter how much he asks. Yeah, I do, in fact, drink hot chocolate, should the occasion arise. That covered it, Malcolm thought. Would you like some? The old man proffered the large canteen, which Malcolm did not reach for. Oh, well, yeah, sure, that would be lovely. He'd played that off well, he thought. Let the old geezer feel like he'd surprised him with kindness and get the rich, chocolatey cupful he wanted.
Bit windy up here today. Shall we sit on Mrs. Pondyke's bench?
The old man picked up his backpack in one hand and, clutching the canister of chocky in the other, began to totter towards a bench slightly further up the cliff. Malcolm followed, out of a sense of intrigue. Mrs. Pondyke? Malcolm jogged a few steps, catching up with the old man, who was moving faster than he'd initially thought.
Yes, that's her bench there.
He gestured with the drinks container.
Says it on the little brass plaque. Loving mother, it says beloved wife.
Oh, that's nice, offered Malcolm, aware it was his bit to slot in some conversation.
I don't think so. She's bloody well dead.
The old man tutted, then moved around the bench to sit upon it, once again sending a hand to rummage in his bag. Malcolm walked around it and sat down too. The view was much the same. Brown sea sloshed against brown sand. He was higher up, but sitting down, causing the whole thing to feel like an absolute waste of time. The old man drew out 2 chipped and well-worn mugs and set them on the bench. It struck Malcolm as a little odd that the old fellow would have 2 mugs on him, but maybe it was just a peculiarity. Maybe he was always hoping to find a friend. That would be deeply sad, wouldn't it? The cups were filled with gently steaming brown liquid, filling the air with a rich smell of good cocoa. The old man lifted his own and looked out at the sea again. Malcolm copied him, drinking the warm broth. It was thick, rich.
Of course, most people don't think about the bench here.
The old man's voice seemed distant, as though he were speaking to the ocean. No?
No. This is a place of interest for far darker reasons.
The old man laid emphasis on the word darker, like a cloak of midnight. It is? Malcolm perked up, now filled with warm chocolate and eager for some local gossip.
Oh, yes. You see, a great many young men have died here under what the police call mysterious circumstances. They jump off, you see. Might be they're sad or angry at their station, who could say?
Malcolm drank again, fascinated by this sudden dark revelation. But you said the police are calling it mysterious or something. If they're just committing suicide, then it's not that... Malcolm trailed off.
Ah, that is if you believe they are.
The old man turned his face to look at Malcolm again. The mole seemed to swim in his vision, spreading like a pool of mud. If I believe?
Yes. You see, perception is very important, young man. What looks true, what looks safe, what looks like a simple mug of cocoa, or a nice old man, what looks like a lad come out to the coast to throw himself to his doom, and what looks like a murder.
Malcolm's brain spun, unable to grasp onto the threads of what was happening. His feet, driven by primal instinct, pulled him off the bench, and he staggered wildly.
Yes, quite beautiful out there. Draws the thoughtful and the lonely. I'm helping them, really. You came because you're sad, didn't you? You came because you wanted to escape. I'm helping you, you see.
Malcolm's body forced itself away from the old man, who had now stood. He seemed impossibly small, and yet somehow too long. I'm not sad. I want to go home.
Shush, 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 shush. Don't make a fuss now, boy. Not in front of Mrs. Pondark's bench.
The old man pushed closer to Malcolm, who, as though powered by steam, moved backwards.
A place of interest, young man. You were interested, weren't you? Lovely treat of cocoa. Nice way to go, eh? Wouldn't mind going that way myself.
The old man smiled wistfully, and Malcolm felt a wave of revulsion. Don't, Sasha, I'll kill you. Malcolm snarled, and some primal rage in him rose up. He wanted to smash the old man to pieces on Mrs. Pondyke's bench. He reached forward for him, but found that his arms raced slowly. He watched them come up, like a bridge rising to allow a ship to pass. With a sense of horror, Malcolm realised the old man wasn't where he had been, and flung about wildly to protect himself. There were no more words for him, but he noticed for a moment the dull brown sea was finally fully visible. Even here, as he rushed towards it, it wasn't very much to look at.
That's chilling. Absolutely chilling little fellow you got there.
What was a horrible little man.
Really enjoyed the way that you played with the comedy of that character. I get not just with the voice that you were doing, but also with the descriptions of him. It's very impressive. It's very impressive. The description of his head at the start is iconic, I think. That kind of glistening baldness. To call it a spot is to do it a disservice.
Yeah.
Just amazing stuff. I actually had a note on that line because it was so good. And this isn't like a you must change this kind of thing. It's just like my personal preference. But
Yeah.
when you describe it as a lake of baldness, it's like circled by a well-thinned, oily shoreline, I think.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. I would just go oily shoreline.
Okay.
Because we know he's
You're
bald.
probably right. Yeah.
So it could, yeah. There was like, it was such a strong image that it just stuck out to me a little bit. But it's a great turn of phrase. The whole thing is good in its current form.
You're
you know
right.
when something yeah, go on.
I have a habit of it, don't I? Just an extra word here, an extra word there. This is what editors are for. I feel to tell you to stop. It's why this is useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
This process.
And I think I often have the opposite problem. Like I just sort of like go like full pared back, like Spartan writing sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. So yeah, it's good to know when to deploy it. I think with such a striking image as that, the oily shoreline is a brilliant bit of writing. I really like that a lot. Yeah, really insistent little fellow, isn't he? This character, and I think we've all had those kind of like strange interactions with.
Oh yeah.
That's why they call them strangers, right? Like it is bizarre when you get talking to someone at a bus stop or whatever.
I was going to say they're birthed at bus stops. I'm sure of it.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we've also been those people at various different points in our lives, or will be at some point. I think everyone gets a turn at being the sort of odd person at the bus stop. I think, the story is deceptively simple, isn't it? Just the old man, old sort of like odd man, poisoning young men and throwing them off a cliff with good cocoa. But it really landed. Like I had the kind of like humor and the strangeness of the murderer transition and transform into fear. The point of the fear is that moment that you ask yourself as the audience, who the fuck drinks that drink?
Yeah.
It's classic horror logic, isn't it? Because somebody just makes a decision that you just would not make. Because there is no fucking way I'm drinking that hot chocolate. At any point of my life, there is no point. There's maybe like right at the end, but I mean, like as a young man, like this guy is, I'm not drinking that hot chocolate. That's not happening. So the fact that you went so into how enticing that cocoa was really important, I think.
Yeah.
You said like the rich smell of good cocoa. Oh, I had another note there, which is that the line after the rich smell of good cocoa, I think you say rich again.
Maybe I do.
I think there's a duplication of rich. And I wrote down that it could be replaced by something like luxurious or
Oh, that's a good word.
that kind of thing. There was a moment where I wasn't sure whether that was the angle you were going, that was the way that the story was going, and I thought he might be like a mini Merlin. When he started to have information that he shouldn't have. But I think that was me just sort of being hopeful that he wasn't a fucking psychopathic murderer.
See, it's thinking like that that gets you drinking the cocoa. But
You got to drink the cocoa.
maybe he's my Merlin.
Do you not think that about people? You encounter those strangers, and you're like, maybe he is my Merlin. I guess you've got to have such an inflated sense of self that you assume that you're Arthur in that scenario.
Just turning to old men. Go on then. Where is it?
Where's the fucking
Where's the
sword, old
sword?
man? Just shaking old men at bus stops.
Take me to the rock.
Really enjoyed it. I loved the descriptions of the British countryside, the British seaside. You had a lens through which you saw Britain in this. You know, with the train speakers not working, the ridiculous countryside town names, that churning brown, like truly quite a boring seaside. Like I imagine that there wasn't any sand on that coastline. That sounds like a pebble beach if ever I've heard of one.
Nothing but breakwaters and grey stones for miles.
Yeah, which, by the way, just the PSA, are not real fucking beaches. If your beach doesn't have sand, it's not a fucking beach. It's a problem.
It's just a quarry with a water issue.
Yeah. The other line that maybe I was laughing a lot through it, but then that laugh went sort of cold in my stomach. You know, when it got fearful. The dreadful circumstances surrounding the rest of his lid when you're talking about the rat tail that emerges from the bottom of his, like at the nape of his neck.
I've got this absolute fascination, and I know it comes from my time in the music world and seeing a lot of older gents who are still coming to rock shows with these men who are losing everything, but they retain long hair at the back.
Yeah, it's like a yard of rat tail.
Yeah, and I just how do they manage it? How do you do such a thing?
I think I definitely admire the conviction of it. You know,
Yeah,
I think there's a degree of that. Like, at what point do you decide that you're going to trim everything else, but that's going to stay? Like, that's going to be your look. Every time that you turn around, people are going to notice that and be like, "Oh, interesting. That's a choice."
I think I don't respect, however, is the comb over. It is that is a fool's hope. And if you've got one, just it's fine. Just be bald. It's okay to be bald.
Yeah,
It's fine to be bald.
absolutely fine to be bald. But there is, I don't know whether it's still okay to laugh about it or not. But there is something still quite inherently funny in like men struggling with their image in that way.
Yeah,
I think, like, I don't know, that might make me sound like a bit of an asshole, but like there is something about like a paunchy middle-aged man stressing out about the fact that he's losing his hair. And you're like, mate, you're not going to be on the cover of fucking like that portion of your life is gone. Like why cling to those last vestiges of it by like teasing strands of oily hair across your bald pate? It's just not a good idea. So it's inherently comedic. Whereas like if that's a woman in that scenario, that's not funny. That's a a bit unfortunate and all the rest of it. So I don't know whether that's just my personal hang-ups or predilections for comedy, but yeah, the rat tail got me, is what I'm trying to say here.
You're not the first to be seized by the tail of the rat, my friend.
It felt like it was going to grow sentient at one point and just start like sort of being like sort of prehensile.
It was actually that was a little rat tail looking alien that was plugged into the back of his neck.
Driving to
the terrible movie Brain Damage. If anyone out there has seen that, I can only apologise that you two have experienced that film.
Gosh, right, really good story. I think.
Thank you. I enjoyed writing it. So it's an interesting prompt, ironically. Interest. So I am excited to see where it took you.
Yeah. Happy to read.
Let's have it.
Interest. I got the first round in, said Liam, and released an accompanying sigh of resignation. Fred's phone pinged as he took his first sip. The push notification from his Ledger app told him he now owed Liam not only a round of drinks, but also 5 more social points. Fred frowned, trying not to let it upset him that he owed so many points on credit to his friends. His relationship debt had been piling up for years, as he often chose not to note down the things that he did with them in mind. They, on the other hand, seemed never to forget, and reliably kept him honest within the social ledger. Fred avoided opening the app much anymore, afraid of the wall of red numbers next to the names of the people he cared for. The Ledger app had been mandatory for several years, one of the few desperate moves made by the government to stick in the face of the growing mental health epidemic. The concept was simple. To grow the social economy of the country, all citizens were encouraged to actively do things for and with their fellow man. The more socialising you do, the more points you accrue, as long as you're willing to track it in the app. Fred knew, according to the rags and hashtags, that many felt the ledger was the last line of defence against economy-shattering mental breakdowns and widespread anarchy. Fred had never had problems with his friendships before, even when the sequence of global plagues and pandemics had converted most people into shut-ins and started the whole degenerative business. Through all that, he'd nurtured and cared for those around him, and afterwards had been a major feature in many of his friends' life. He'd been an ear for those who needed to complain about their newfound fatherhood. He'd been a shoulder for those who needed to cry, and was ever ready with a hug for those lonely souls made lonelier still by the emptiness of modern life. The ledger had changed all of that. Fred hardly ever charged his friends for what he felt were real moments in an unreal world. His heartfelt behaviour continually cost him more and more points with all of them, and that was before compound interest started taking big bites out of his relationships. Liam tapped his empty glass expectantly. Fred quickly drank off the half he had remaining as he stood. "Same again?" he asked. Liam nodded in response, too busy looking at his phone for eye contact. Fred tried not to mind, and whilst he was waiting to be served, fell into conversation with an attractive and age-appropriate woman at the bar. He was starting to get excited about the prospect of a new relationship when she pulled out her phone and asked if he was up for her doing a social credit check. She didn't wait for his answer before diving into her app. He watched her shoulders tense and her face twist into a mask of horror at what she saw in his ledger. Fred didn't even get her name in the end. Liam wasn't there when Fred got back to their table. Probably an emergency, thought Fred, hoping that Liam's young son was okay. Alone, he nursed the 2 pints of lager and then burped his way home listening to Iggy Pop and trying to get excited about future hangouts with people who seemed to be drifting away from him. Something was strange when Fred awoke the next day. It was a bright but cold Saturday, perfect for a good walk to the cafe to meet some friends. He opened his phone to put out no-pressure feelers and saw that none of his social media and direct messaging apps were working. Each told him his account had been suspended without review. Even his email and texting service had been shut off. Finally, Fred opened his ledger. The usual wall of red numbers had been replaced with a black screen across which a white banner sat bearing the word bankrupt in all caps. Fred's response to the mind-blanking panic was to make himself a cuppa. The kettle seemed to take an hour to boil, and his thoughts seemed to take on the properties of the water, roiling and bubbling inside his skull. A moment after taking the first sip, his phone rang so loudly that Fred dropped his cup in his haste to scoop up the device. A push alert on his home screen, again in all capitals, read, "Citizen, the licensed insolvency practitioner for your region has been appointed to you. Your meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. at your home. Please provide proof of identity, such as a valid passport or driver's license. Please ensure you do not interact with any other citizens before your meeting. Transgressions will be severely handled." Fred's attempts to not freak out completely failed. He spent the next hour losing his mind around his flat and ultimately had to rush to get properly dressed before his government-mandated meeting. The knock at his door was both punctual and loud. "Coming!" he yelled, pulling a jumper over his head and smoothing out his hair on his way to the door. He opened it to reveal a severe-looking man wearing a tacky, dark red suit. The bright blue governmental lanyard and ID card he wore around his neck seemed out of place, as did the snakeskin briefcase hanging from his oddly large hands. "Are you Fred Graves?" the severe man said. "Yes, please, come in. Would you like a cup of tea?" "Let me be clear, Mr. Graves. Of all the things this meeting is, it is not a social call. We shall sit," the practitioner scanned the untidy apartment, "at your kitchen table and discuss your social insolvency." Fred followed the man meekly and sat at his own table like he was a little boy, unsure why he'd been summoned to the headmaster's office. The practitioner carefully opened his snakeskin briefcase on the table and began taking thick sheafs of documents out of it. "Does this happen to people a lot?" Fred asked. "More than you might think," said the man as he concentrated on sorting the documents into piles. "It's usually a divorce of some kind. The base costs of an unfaithful spouse or simple marital acrimony can be off the charts. You're my first case to be solely concerned with friendships, though." He studied one of the documents and shook his head. "Judging by your compound interest, it certainly looks as though you were an awful friend." Are you allowed to say that to me?" "Look, Mr. Graves, things are going to be terribly quiet for you, so if I were in your shoes, I'd take any conversation coming my way." I wasn't an awful friend. I just tried to do my best by them, and I didn't like the ledger." "Surely, though, it must have occurred to you to be realistic. If it is how you claim, then you should have charged them for the things you were doing on your side of things. Then you wouldn't be in this mess." I felt like that would have defeated the purpose. "Of what?" "Friendship," replied Fred morosely. "Down to business, then. These," the practitioner indicated the folders of documents, "are your social debts from your mishandled relationships, grouped up into packages. As you are bankrupt, the government has empowered me to sell off your debts to interested parties and recoup the losses your prior acquaintances incurred by associating with you. Those friendships will be bought up by other users with positive ledger scores, and only once all are sold will you be allowed to re-enter society online and IRL. At this point, I am legally required to inform you that prior relationship participants cannot be held responsible should you harm yourself, and the department itself holds no liability." "Wait, you mean other people are going to buy my relationships?" "Exactly. I will leave you with these copies for your files." The practitioner wrinkled his nose and cast a disapproving glance at the untidy work-from-home arrangement Fred had installed in an old bureau in one of the corners of his small apartment. "I will also ask you to keep your social interactions restricted to the bare minimum when purchasing groceries or other essential outings. The department does not like the social economy to be corrupted by debtors during insolvency proceedings. Goodbye, Mr. Graves." It took 3 months for his social debts to clear. Those 90-odd days of enforced solitude, left alone with his self-esteem in tatters and no one to help him carry the burden of wholesale rejection, were spent poring over the files of friendships he thought he would never be without. Every time one of his relationships was successfully sold off, he received a no-reply notification informing him that his friends had moved on from him. Fred found out it was over only when one of his silent social apps pinged for the first time in 12 weeks. It was a friend request from someone called Tony. Fred recognized the name and the face from secondary school. He accepted the request. Nervous about coming on too strong, after so much time spent overthinking his loneliness, Fred was pleasantly surprised when Tony immediately invited him to a nearby pub that night. Fred made sure he was early, but couldn't stop himself from spending that gained time overthinking whether to buy the first round, or whether that would render immediate social obligation. "Hi," said Tony, tapping Fred on the shoulder to get his attention. "Oh, hi. Sorry. I was going to get around him, but Fred shrugged apologetically and radiated the feeling that there was a whole world on one side and just him on the other. "That's okay. We'll get a drink in a minute. Fred, I'm just going to get right to it. I saw what was happening to you and thought I'd reach out. No ledger, just mates, you know?" So, how have things been? Tony smiled compassionately. It seemed too big a question, and the relief of being asked went hand in hand with Fred's newfound anxiety of not wanting to ruin everything again. Not great. Fred started to cry, the kind of ugly, rubber faced anguish it is tricky to talk through. Yeah, not great. But thanks for asking.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
The I mean, the first thing I wrote down was ew, social points,
Yeah.
and from there it got worse. Like the idea of this social ledger is just absolutely horrid, isn't it?
Yep.
The yeah, obviously there's some element of I don't know if satire is the right word for it in this kind of setting, but it felt to me like a true horror story because of the way things were handled. The I mean, you captured the unease of having an official in your home really well.
Mm.
Like that, it's sort of unreadable bastardry of the man in the. And I am going to take umbrage here because I wore a dark red suit on my wedding, so
Yours wasn't tacky.
it was not tacky. I will accept that. But I did think, oh no, am I being lampooned?
No, you're not. No, I was
I do
thinking the
not
fact
own
of
a
like,
snakeskin briefcase though. I
yet.
feel like is the ultimate sign of wankerism, isn't it? The snakeskin briefcase.
I think there's just something about civil servants that it's interesting when you make them not like a grey, like faceless
Yeah.
person. Like when you give them strange characteristics, people are forced to reckon with the stuff with the fact that somebody real inhabits that role.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just loads of little just turns of phrase in there for it was more terminology, things like social credit check and relationship debts. Like they made me so uneasy so quickly that it meant that everything that happened I accepted for being the reality of that setting.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
It's yeah, it's just you established very very quickly how it worked and that it was bad, and it meant that as more things were introduced, rather than being sort of pulled out to consider what it would mean, it was all very elegantly deployed so that it could be followed, and you could just keep going down the rabbit hole of how fucking awful it was without needing to like stop and consider the meaning of it. I think that's really good because if you're things that are complicated like financial systems, to be able to use the bits of it that everyone has an idea of
Mm.
to very snappily get to what you're trying to say. I think that was great. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I was pleased with the concept when I had it. I think
Yeah.
there is something about. I think everyone's felt that ick in the past at some point, or at least I definitely have. This kind of when you encounter somebody that does treat all of their relationships and friendships as transactional
Yeah.
at a high level, because obviously there is a little bit of that, isn't there, in terms of like, both of you need to be working at a relationship to get it to work. Um, like one side can't do everything. That's not how a friendship works or a
Yes.
romantic relationship
Yeah.
works. Um, but this kind of like oversensitivity to the transactional nature of it turned into a government mandated system and push alert app. Yeah, it terrified me. So I popped it in. It seems quite. It was one of those ones where it was just the first idea that popped into my head because
Yeah.
my brain went compound interest in response to the prompt.
See, mine did the same, and I couldn't find the right story for it.
Oh, really?
I'm
Okay,
glad I
that's
didn't
interesting.
because I wouldn't have wanted to compare mine to that. the I think that at first it jarred me at first, and then it actually helped to really build the state they were in. Was when in that sort of automated government message it said that there would be social transgressions would be severely handled,
Mm.
and that's such threatening language.
Yeah,
But it when once I'd gone, oh God, that's awful. For it to then be, no, wait, that's just how they do things. The only other thing that made me go, oh, was when the your snakeskin briefcase man said IRL instead of in real life. It's like, oh God, I don't want internet speak to become just used by government bods, but people do it, don't they? They say
they do.
lol
They
and
do. So I actually cut a bit from that
yeah.
line, where he says something along the lines of like, as the kids would say, IRL. Um,
Oh,
and I thought that was actually, it made it worse by cutting that. So I cut
yeah,
it.
and I think you're
Uh,
right.
yeah,
It does kind of speak of it gives them a millennial edge, old enough to know the internet lingo. Although there's a very real chance, Ben, that the youths of today are saying different things on the internet
yeah.
to
I suspect.
the
I
ones
think he
we
probably
know.
is a little bit dated. Like I felt like I was dating him a little bit by
Yeah.
by putting that in. Um, yeah, yeah. It's always interesting the stuff that you cut out, isn't it?
Yes.
Because nobody gets to see it, so it's interesting when we get to discuss it. But there was a whole section on the start of this story about him being late and always being late and that being a problem.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was just undermining the line that I had on how he had got himself into such social debt. By
Yeah. I
sort of
think.
too easily explained by him being late all the time. So I
Yeah.
thought
I
that,
think it. I think it would have undermined the
yeah,
story because he was a good man. He was well intentioned. He did things because they were right to do, not because of the literal point scoring of it. So I think if you'd given him some, because maybe he is late sometimes, but I don't think that would come like be something he would register in the same way as he's not registering helping people. Like the interactions are the bit that's important. So if he's 5-10 minutes late, why would it matter to the character? Like it's a very it's a horrible world you made,
yeah,
but it is. I think it's made all the more horrible because it is so close to the one we're in. This sort of apification of everything, and we're just as guilty of it every time we've had conversations recently about we should pick a film to watch together. Oh, there must be an app for that,
mm, yeah.
and this idea of your human interactions being stolen piecemeal by applications is it's this is a terrifying and somewhat logical conclusion for it.
Yeah,
So I
not
really
a million miles away, is it? Like
yeah,
I know. You'll probably know better than I, but we've obviously got the digital ID cards stuff that's happening in the UK at the moment,
yes,
which a lot of people are reacting quite poorly to. Um, so there was an element of that in this as well. But also, I was thinking, what is the name for it in Japan when you have a shut-in?
oh I
It's like
don't know,
there's an. My understanding is that in Japan there has been a problem where, um, like I think in particular, like young men have become shut-ins.
yeah,
Um, and there is a word for it, and I just can't remember what it is. But there was no.
hikikomori,
Is that what it is?
yeah,
I wouldn't know, but that's it. I was thinking a little bit about that concept as well because obviously we went through one pandemic which did fuck a load of people up, like
oh
straight
yeah,
up fucked people up. Not just the illness side of it, but like the ramifications of having their lives so abruptly shrunk to their fucking flat or their house.
yeah,
Really messed people up. And I know it was years ago now, but I think that's why I'm still talking about it because you can see now we're past all the kind of negative medical effects, I think, apart from those poor people that have long COVID. Um, but now we're seeing the damage that the mental health stuff did.
yeah,
And you think about like this next generation of kids that were like 4 or 5 when it happened. You think about
yeah,
how important that development, that socializing development is at that age, and they were just trapped in the house. Um, yeah, it feels like we're still dealing with this, and there's no sign that was like the last pandemic ever either. It's very likely there'll be more.
yeah.
So
I
I
mean,
want, yeah,
how could you possibly know? Even before it happened, no one was thinking, "Oh well, we're due a pandemic," were they? Like, yeah,
yeah. So I think that the idea was that this is obviously this is a horrible world that I've constructed here. But it's not a million miles away from our world, and
No.
basically all I'm really saying here is that I think it would take a couple more of those to tip us over into shit like this.
I mean, yeah, it is on its surface a horror story, but it's kind of spec fiction as well, really, isn't it? It's got that.
I think so. I think you were right with satire as well. I think I didn't conceive it as a very gritty, unpleasant social satire.
Yeah. I will say, so I don't forget that I loved the last line.
Oh yeah,
I think that not great. There are so many directions the story could go from there, and I think that's a great tool in short stories if you can. Because I did it in mine. It's always tempting to have a big moment. You have the person dies or something blows up, or the moon turns into an orange or whatever you're gonna do. But to have it be that that big moment happens in the middle, and then the end is just loaded with potential. I think that's a really good choice, especially with this story. I think it really works for in two ways, because he's about to have an outpouring of sadness, but it means that there is a future for Fred. There is a potential for this character to stop having that bad time and start having a good time again.
yeah.
So
There are
yeah,
real
I
people
think
still out
that's
there that
yeah,
are behaving in the way that he wants to behave. Thank you. Yeah. I think there's two things there. One of them is not great as a response. Is I don't know whether that's too. I was worried that that might be too English, because we do still have quite a strong tradition of the stiff upper lip and stuff. So if you ask a
yeah,
bloke, if you go and ask a bloke how he is, and he says okay, he probably means that things aren't okay. If he
yeah,
says not great, then things are probably on fire in his life.
yes.
Um, so yeah, it was quite loaded, wasn't it? But the
I
actual
wonder
last line is, "But thanks for asking," which is
yes, it's true.
it's that continuation. It's like it is important to keep talking about stuff, even if you are a little bit closed down and like you haven't quite got the words to sort of be able to get other people to comprehend the totality of the damage that's happened to you. Just thanking them for asking does show that you appreciated it anyway.
Yeah, that you care that they care.
Yeah, yeah, it's pointful.
I think the
Yeah,
just on that, okay is bad, bad is terrible. Isn't it funny that if you get past that, it's sort of like, oh, oh shit, it's probably not as bad as the other ones would be because it might be something work related or minor, such a strange Englishism, and it might even just be a sort of Cockneyism that if you say, "Ah, mate, shit," it's normally because you lost a bet on a horse race. Whereas if something was really deeply wrong with it, you would be more likely to say, "Oh no, yeah, I'm all right."
I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's saddening, but you've just got to navigate these kind of things, haven't you?
yeah,
So I enjoyed that. I found that to be a good prompt. I liked interest.
yes.
I think it was a good prompt.
I think
I'm
it
still not
was.
entirely sure what makes a good prompt and what doesn't make a good prompt, which is quite telling considering we're like nearing episode 300 of this
I
podcast.
don't think we're ever gonna know, mate.
It's just
I
always magic.
there are some when you look at them and you think, God, that word means 1,000 different things, and it could do anything. And then you sit down, and there are so many options, and none of them make a story in your head. And then there are ones like this where it sounds like both of us went, oh yeah, you from the sound of it straight off the beat, but me after a little bit of reflection, yeah, actually I know what I want to write about. And there is no clue before you do it. I mean, just a little peek behind the curtain for those of you listening. When it's just Ben and I, we use a random word generator and we'll just take the word it gives us. With a guest, we're a bit nicer. We give them a few options and let them pick. But
I
for
mean,
ourselves, we.
Yeah, I want to point out this point that this randomness actually does come quite strongly from you as well. Like
Yeah.
it terrifies me, which is good creatively, I think. So I'm on board with it, but it's definitely not my idea to do it that way.
No.
But I trust the process, and I think you've got really good instincts on how to make sure that things are fresh and challenging. So yeah, it's appreciated.
Just because it's fun as well. I had a really bad habit early on before I was using a sort of a dictionary app to pull a word at random. I would just write 3 prompts, and I started noticing that you could tell when I was hungry because they'd all be sort of vaguely food related, and that's when I thought, no, I've got to I've got to use a machine for this because otherwise they're going to be a sandwich, crisps, drink. Oh yeah, I want my meal deal.
It's my meal deal, yeah. The fallibility of the human stomach, yeah. Love it. So just before we finish off, actually, there's just one thing that I
Yeah,
did want to mention about this, the way that I approach writing this story, and you actually touched on it in your feedback, which is that there was that sort of the climactic moment in the middle somewhere,
yeah,
and then it reaches that ending. I did quite consciously, after I'd had the idea, so I didn't start with structure, but after I'd had the idea, I did quite consciously try and put it into the kind of like very simple building blocks of writing a short story. And it's an exercise that I do every now and again. I don't do it every time because I don't want things to be
yeah,
like cookie cutter or anything like that. But I would recommend it to people that are just, you've got an idea, maybe you aren't 100% happy with the story or whatever. Just put it through this filter, right? Exposition starts with exposition, rising action, which means that things are approaching a climactic moment. Then you have the climax. Then you have the falling action, which is how everything, how the climax affects everything that you'd previously set up. And then you have the denouement, the resolution at the end. And it's so simple. It's really simple to just apply it to your story. And I think it pays off because you mentioned that the structure was a part of your appreciation of the story, and the
yeah,
structure was really simply just tweaked into place. Worth doing. Good trick.
yeah. Post them. We'll pop it out. Pop that list out so people can grab it from the various places that we social.
I think, like, to be honest, I definitely can't take any credit for it. I think it's called like Freytag's Pyramid or something, the like the famous version of it. So I'm sure that if anybody's interested in writing, like if you get a book on short story writing, it will mention it. It's pretty ubiquitous across everything, I think. So yeah, go for it.
Well, thank you for sharing your tale with me, Ben. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to it, and I thoroughly enjoyed writing my own.
Me too, man. That was a good one. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. And as always, if anyone at home heard interest, it piqued their interest, and now they're interested in writing a story, please share it with us. We absolutely love getting writing from you. And some people, you may have heard it happen before. If we like your story, we may just ask you to come on and write again with us.
Oh, he's throwing the gauntlet down there. Crikey. Love it. This is what I'm talking about, man. You drive me forwards.
Gotta have a little chaos, Batman.
That's a good
Get
ending.
out of here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?